To conclude, I'm blessed, and I don't want to start crying. God is touching me. In fact, God is touching me so much that it's like that not because of you, Dan and Carol, but because of God helping me and God moving me in my life, moving in my life, it's okay, we need some bloopers. I can still laugh and I can still smile. That because of that, to obey God, where God says, I fed you, I took care of you, I sent you to Disneyland Hotel, I saved your life and everything. So God is saying, now there's something that I want you to hand over to me, what I call that demonic trilogy. The prayer line, the spin cycle, and the evening that I was thrown out. Okay. But ironically, the night that I was thrown out, it was actually easier for me to accept it. It was actually because of the good that came out of it. What I had been struggling the most is handing over the prayer. That's because that hit right in the heart and right in the soul of the theme of being prayed over and slain in the Spirit. So that has actually been the hardest. But I can do it. When God has been so good to me, I have to do it. One pastor was saying, if you have to do it when you hand over things to God, if you have to do it 99 times in one day, and then the next day you'll do it 98 times. And that's kind of what I'm puzzled about and struggling with, where it's like, okay, that to hand over to God, it's just that because certain the images is so ingrained in my mind, it's so imprinted, especially when, like I had said, that it would have been better if I had fallen on the floor, because I was halfway there in a faint, than to be in the prayer line. Because I was so disorientated. So those images and those memories are still imprinted in my mind. So, but because God has been good to me, that I am able to hand it over to God. But I can't say, oh, it's all forgotten. No, actually, if I try to forget it, that I'm remembering what I'm trying to forget. But I can obey God, because also I got to look at the whole picture. When I studied German in the 80s, there was a phrase, Gestalt, that means the whole picture. So in other words, to look at the whole picture, that yes, it's not just about the prayer line, about the spin cycle and the night that I was thrown out, but also how God has blessed me and how God has helped me over the years, over that particular matter in that particular situation. And also another thing where I feel that God has been dealing with me to hand over all of the scenes, and here's where I want to be careful, the scenes that were done to me, the scenes that I was accused of being there to cause a scene, and the scenes that I was not guilty of, but they became escalated, where it was so to hand over, there was a whole bunch of trash that was going on, so we're not going to debate where the trash came from. We're not going to debate whether it's the trash that was done to me or that I was guilty of. I'm kind of putting it all in the same bundle, but to hand that over to God. But just to let you know that I was not there to cause a scene. And how could I have been there to cause a scene when I was also caught in that spin cycle? Just like with the kids, it's sprinkling, it's raining, it's sprinkling, and going back and forth for 2 hours. I'm not going to go for counseling and deliverance. Then why should I give it up if I can't have it back? Then I'm not going to go for counseling. Oh, you're not going to get it back. And you know what? I was at fault. I confess it. I do hand that over to God, and I do admit that I was at fault because I did not know when to put on the brakes. When I saw that it was escalating, and also that was egging Frank on too, where when I kept allowing myself to be caught in that spin cycle, but when I walked away, it's just I couldn't believe what was happening. It's like, what how did I end up here? What's going on here? How did I end up here? Where to go in, just like with the kids, my mommy says it's sprinkling, my mommy says it's raining, my mommy says it's spring. So it's kind of like, I'm not going to go for counseling and deliverance. Well, why should I go if I can't have it back? But it's an idol, it's an obsession, you can't have it. But if it's an idol, it's an obsession, why did she have to humiliate me in the prayer line? This spin cycle. I did not start it. But I confess, I did not know when to stop it. And there I was guilty. And I was guilty of that because and also when I found myself in that spin cycle, that was just egging Frank on. Because the more I was, and I see it more like what I call like a hangman's noose, like a rope, that the more I'm not going to go for counseling, I'm not going to go for counseling, and the more, well, you're not going to get it back because it's that just kept egging him on, that just tightened that noose that was around my neck, and that just tightened his hand that was on my throat, so to speak, mentally. But if I had been able, 2 minutes earlier, when I had walked away, if I had just said, you say it's an idol, to say to both you and Frank, you say it's an idolsome session, fine. Then to throw back the prayer line, then that would have thrown him off balance and caught him off guard, and that would have got his hand off of my throat, so to speak. And so, if I was not there to cause a scene. Frank kept stirring the pot, but I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't know how to put on the brakes. It was my fault. But if I had put on the brakes 2 minutes earlier, when I had walked away to throw back, to renounce the prayer line, it would have been a done deal. When I had left your church and your meeting at the Marriott, I do have to finish, but I'm going to talk about the Marriott because it's very, very clear to me that God has been closing that book on the Marriott. But it's a very, very interesting story, and it's a true story. I'll be right back.